Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive?
Absolutely. Always up for a good story.
Well, today we're diving into the life of a true football legend, Jimmy Greaves. The name might ring a bell, especially for those goal-scoring records.
Oh, those records, they're impressive. But trust me, there's so much more to him than just goals.
Exactly. We've got some excerpts from his biography here, and we're going to try and go beyond those headlines, see the man behind the stats.
I think what's really fascinating is how this biography paints a very different picture of him. It's not just about tactics and scores. It's about personality, his journey,
Hmm.
the highs and lows.
Yeah, like the whole package. So should we start right at the beginning?
Let's do it.
Okay, so picture this. Post-war Dagenham. Not exactly a footballing hotbed, right?
Not the first place you'd think of now.
But this is where young Jimmy honed his skills. And we're not talking fancy academies here. Think streets, potato fields, playing with older boys.
Talk about a tough environment. You had to be quick, had to be tough, just to survive out there.
Survival instincts, and I bet those skills came in handy later on, right?
Absolutely. That kind of environment shapes you, for
Mm.
sure. It's not about structured coaching. It's raw talent, pure instinct.
And you can almost see that in his playing style later on, can't you? Like that natural instinct for goal. But speaking of shaping him, there's this great anecdote about his dad gifting him a leather football.
Oh, yeah, I read about that.
Imagine back then a leather football that was pure gold.
A prized possession.
Made him the envy of every kid in the neighborhood, I bet.
Absolutely.
And I think that simple gift, it might have just ignited that passion that never really went away.
It probably did. It's funny how these little things can have such a huge impact. And then you've got the Chelsea scout, Jimmy Thompson, always sporting that bowler hat. Can you imagine?
The classic scout look.
He had an eye for talent, that's for sure. He managed to convince Greaves to sign with Chelsea, even steered him away from Tottenham.
Wow, imagine that young Greaves having to choose between two of London's biggest clubs.
It was a big decision. And from what I gathered, Thompson's persistence and the fact that Chelsea already had some East End boys playing for them, that helped sway Greaves.
So it was like a sense of familiarity, maybe.
Could be. But even at Chelsea, things weren't always smooth sailing.
Yeah, I read about that. He wasn't just a footballer, was he? Even as a teenager, he had that entrepreneurial spirit, had a window cleaning round, even tried his hand at selling insurance.
That's right. This wasn't just some kid who lived and breathed football. He had other interests, other ambitions.
And it's interesting, right? Because he actually quit professional football briefly.
Yeah, he got frustrated.
Yeah.
Felt like he wasn't progressing as quickly as he wanted to.
Imagine that, having the guts to walk away from a top club because it wasn't the right fit at the time.
It shows a certain kind of self-belief, doesn't it? Knowing what you want, even at that young age.
But the draw of the game, it was too strong. He was back within a week.
Couldn't stay away for too long.
And then comes Ted Drake, the Chelsea manager. What a character.
Formidable, that's the word. Apparently, he threatened to resign if Greaves didn't commit to the club. Talk about pressure.
That's some tough love right there.
It wasn't just pressure, though. Greaves really respected Drake, saw how much faith he had in him. And there was this sense of loyalty. He'd signed a new contract without even asking for a bonus.
Wow.
Yeah, which is a different side to him, a sense of responsibility,
Yeah.
beyond his years, really.
All right, picture this. 17 years old, making your debut for Chelsea, facing off against Danny Blanchflower, Tottenham's captain.
Nerves of steel, right?
You'd think so. But apparently, not for Greaves. His teammate, Sillett, said he never saw him nervous. He'd just be calmly puffing away on a cigarette in the dressing room.
There's that unflappable demeanor.
It's almost like pressure fueled him, or maybe he just had this innate confidence in his abilities.
Maybe a bit of both.
Yeah.
And of course, we can't forget about those iconic oversized shorts.
Oh, yeah, the shorts.
They weren't a fashion statement, more like a quirk that became his trademark.
Yeah.
Imagine something so accidental becoming a symbol.
It's those little details that make him so memorable. From Chelsea prodigy, he quickly rose to the England team, scoring goals left and right. But then comes the move to Italy, AC Milan. That was a big leap.
Huge. And it turned out to be a bit of a culture clash for him.
In what way?
Well, British players in Italy back then, they faced a completely different world. The tactics were more rigid, almost stifling, especially for someone with Greaves' flair.
It must have been a tough adjustment.
It was, and he wasn't alone in this. Dennis Law and Joe Baker, they had similar experiences in Italy around the same time.
Really?
Yeah. They just couldn't adapt to the style of play. Felt isolated, misunderstood, It was the difficult time for them,
It really highlights the challenges players faced back then, doesn't it? When moving abroad, I mean.
for sure. And Greaves' return to England wasn't exactly smooth sailing either. There was disapproval from the public, and the Football League wasn't too keen on him coming back. Made the whole transfer situation pretty complicated.
So a bit of controversy there.
Yeah, a bit. But he eventually found his way to Tottenham Hotspur, which turned out to be a match made in heaven.
And Tottenham under Bill Nicholson, that was something special, wasn't it? Their playing style was so innovative, emphasizing tactics and teamwork.
It really was. They were actually one of the first English teams to successfully adopt the push-and-run style that was popular in Europe.
So they were ahead of their time, in a way.
Definitely. And it meant quick passings, lots of movement, coordinated attacks.
Yeah.
Very different from the more direct physical style that was common back then.
And Greaves thrived in that environment. Quickly became one of the lads, even joined in on their legendary off-field antics.
Oh yeah, they were a lively bunch. Lots of pranks, camaraderie, and Greaves fit right in.
But Nicholson, he was a demanding manager, wasn't he?
Absolutely. He expected discipline, tactical awareness, which didn't always come naturally to Greaves.
It's an interesting contrast, isn't it? You have this naturally gifted goal scorer, almost playing on instinct, and now he has to adapt to a more structured approach.
It's a clash of styles. But somehow, it worked, and it brought out the best in him. He was still scoring goals for fun, but now it was part of a greater team effort.
And then, of course, you've got the legendary partnership with Alan Gilzane.
Now, that was something special. It was like they had this telepathic understanding on the pitch.
Like they could read each other's minds.
Exactly. And they were both unselfish players, always looking for the best option. Their styles complemented each other perfectly.
Greaves always spoke very highly of Gilzane, called him one of the greatest he'd ever seen. But even with all this success, there's this one event that casts a bit of a shadow over his career. The 1966 World Cup.
Ah, the World Cup.
The ultimate what-if in English football history. Greaves starts the tournament on fire, full of confidence, but then picks up an injury.
And this is where the debate still rages today, doesn't it? Should he have been in the final? Was Hurst the right choice?
It's a question that'll probably never be answered definitively.
Ramsey, the England manager, he was known for his tactical flexibility, but he also had strong opinions about the type of players he wanted. Greaves, with his individual brilliance, he didn't always fit that mold.
And you have to remember the context, right? Back then, the media landscape was completely different. Players' mental health wasn't really talked about.
Exactly. We can only imagine the impact it had on Greaves, missing out on the biggest game of his life.
It must have been a bittersweet victory for him, seeing England win, but knowing he wasn't a part of it.
It was a different era.
It really makes you think about those sliding door moments, doesn't it? Like, what if he hadn't gotten injured?
Absolutely. But, his story doesn't end there.
Oh, definitely not. He went on to achieve even more success after the World Cup, kept scoring goals for Tottenham, even won a second FA Cup with them.
Yeah, that second FA Cup win, it really showed his resilience.
Yeah.
Because the game was changing, becoming more tactical, more defensively minded.
I can see that. It wasn't that free-flowing, attack-heavy football of the early 60s anymore.
Exactly. Teams were getting more disciplined, focusing on defending, zonal marking, tactical fouls, all that stuff to disrupt the flow of play.
Must have been tough for a player like Greaves, who thrived on instinct and flair, to adapt to that.
It was. It wasn't just about individual brilliance anymore. It was about fitting into a system. And while Greaves could certainly do that, it wasn't always his natural way of playing.
Right. But then there's this incident at West Ham, the Blackpool affair. New Year's Eve, I think it was.
Oh, yeah, the Blackpool incident.
What happened there?
Well, it was the night before a crucial FA Cup tie against Blackpool. And back then, it wasn't unusual for players to have a drink or two, even before a match.
Really? Even before a big game?
It happened. So Greaves, along with a few teammates, including Bobby Moore, they decided to have a night out.
Seems a bit risky, even for those days.
It backfired big time. West Ham ended up losing 4-0 to Blackpool, who were struggling at the time. And rumors of the players' night out, well, they reached the manager, Ron Greenwood.
Oof, I bet he wasn't happy.
He was furious. It wasn't just about the loss. It was about a breach of trust. And it kind of highlighted this changing attitude within the game,
Yeah, like a shift in mentality.
Professionalism was becoming more important, and Greenwood felt like his players had shown a real lack of discipline.
So this incident, was it a turning point, not just in Greaves' career, but in football itself?
I think so. It marked a change in the dynamic between players and managers.
Mm.
The days of those relaxed attitudes, those pre-match drinks, they were fading away.
And for Greaves, it seems like this incident coincided with a deeper personal struggle.
His battle with alcoholism.
Yeah.
He admitted later on that the seeds were sown much earlier, the death of his infant son, the isolation he felt in Italy, those were all contributing factors.
It's heartbreaking to think about.
But after the Blackpool incident, things kind of spiraled. The drinking got heavier, and it started affecting his personal life, his relationships, his career.
It's a classic case of trying to numb the pain, isn't it?
It is. And he tried to get help, spend time in rehab, but the cycle continued. It was a long, difficult journey, and it all played out in the public eye, which must have made it even harder.
Imagine having to deal with all of that while being in the spotlight.
Must have been incredibly tough. But then there's this turning point, a moment that brought everything to the surface.
Okay, tell me about it.
It's called the Chelmsford incident. Greaves was playing for Chelmsford City at this point, a non-league team, and during a match, he gets sent off, refuses to leave the field. The match had to be abandoned.
Wow, sounds like a bit of a meltdown.
It was. It was a public display of his inner turmoil, really. And it led to a tabloid expose revealing his struggle with alcoholism to the world.
That must have been incredibly difficult having your personal life splashed across the headlines like that.
It was. But it forced him to confront his demons. And he made the decision to go public with his story, to use his platform to help others who were battling similar issues.
It's inspiring, turning such a painful experience into something positive like that.
It was a brave decision. But how did he manage to pull himself back from the brink? It wasn't easy.
What was it that helped him?
Well, he credits the support of his family, especially his wife, Irene. They were there for him no matter what. And then there was Dave Underwood, the chairman of Barnet FC, who offered him a chance to play again.
So back to the game he loved, even at a non-league level.
It was more than just football at that point. It was about routine, camaraderie, a sense of belonging. And importantly, Greaves decided to stop drinking completely.
Wow, that takes serious willpower.
It does. He had to change his lifestyle drastically, distance himself from his old habits and triggers.
It's incredible, really, the strength it takes to completely overhaul your life like that.
It shows his character, his determination to get his life back on track. And while he was rebuilding himself personally, a new opportunity came knocking. Television.
Interesting. From goal scorer to pundit, not the most obvious career move.
It wasn't. He started out as an analyst on some regional football shows, and it turned out to be a perfect fit.
What made him so good at it?
He brought his wit, his insight, his genuine love of the game to the screen. And he wasn't afraid to be himself, to challenge conventions, which people loved.
He was always known for speaking his mind, wasn't he?
He was. But he did it in a way that was charming, never mean-spirited. There was always a twinkle in his eye, a sense of humor that disarmed people.
Right. And then, of course, there's the legendary Saint and Greavesy.
Oh, what a duo.
Yeah.
Their chemistry was undeniable. They brought humor, insight, and genuine warmth to football broadcasting.
They were like the mischievous uncles of football punditry. Always poking fun, but never in a cruel way.
You could tell they genuinely loved the game. And they weren't afraid to laugh at themselves, which made them so relatable.
Exactly. They kind of challenged the conventions of football broadcasting at the time, didn't they?
They did. It was less about serious analysis, more about entertainment, and it resonated with viewers.
They became household names, as much for their personalities as their football knowledge. It's a remarkable transformation, really. The once troubled footballer, now finding joy and success in this unexpected career.
It's a story of redemption. From the depths of despair to finding fulfillment in a way he probably never imagined. He didn't just survive his struggles, he thrived. And he used his platform to help others, which is truly inspiring.
It's a powerful reminder that even when things seem bleak, there's always hope for a brighter future. And Greaves didn't just find success on television, he used his platform to make a real difference.
Absolutely. His documentary, Just for Today, was incredibly moving. He spoke so openly and honestly about his struggles with alcoholism, and it inspired countless others who were battling addiction. It resonated with viewers because it was real, raw, and authentic.
He wasn't afraid to be vulnerable, to show his flaws. It was a far cry from that polished, often guarded world of football personalities. He was just Jimmy, sharing his story in the hope that it might help someone else. And it did, didn't it?
It did. He got countless letters and messages from people who felt seen and understood because of his honesty. It proved that even someone who had achieved incredible success could struggle with these demons.
It humanized him, made him even more endearing to the public. But even with all this newfound success, the shadow of 1966 still lingered.
The World Cup. The unanswered question of what might have been?
It's something that followed him throughout his life, didn't it?
It did. And it wasn't until 2009 that he finally received his World Cup winner's medal.
Long overdue, but well-deserved.
Absolutely. But even then, his reaction was classic Greaves. He joked about how many goals he would have scored against Andorra, the team England was playing that day.
He never lost that sense of humor, did he? His ability to find the lightness in any situation.
Never. And he continued to work to share his insights, his love of the game, until he suffered a stroke in 2015.
A devastating blow. It robbed him of his speech and mobility.
It was. But his spirit remained unbroken.
His family was there for him, made sure he still enjoyed life, spending time with his loved ones. And then you've got this beautiful twist of fate. He and Irene remarried in 2017, 40 years after their divorce.
Talk about a love story for the ages. It speaks volumes about their connection, their enduring love for each other. They went through so much together, but their bond remained strong.
It's a testament to the power of love and forgiveness, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, where do we land with Greaves' legacy? What's the lasting impact of his story?
It's multifaceted. He's a goal-scoring legend, a record breaker, no doubt. But he's also a symbol of human frailty, the struggles we all face, whether we're famous footballers or everyday people.
He showed us the highs and lows, the triumphs and the heartbreaks.
He taught us about resilience, about redemption, about the power of human connection, and the importance of finding your voice.
He also reminded us that life is full of surprises. And sometimes the greatest fulfillment comes from the most unexpected places.
He found a new passion in television, a new way to connect with people. And his son, Danny, is now dedicated to making football accessible for all youngsters. A beautiful way to honor his father's legacy.
A legacy that extends far beyond goals and trophies. It's a legacy of humanity, of resilience, of the enduring power of the human spirit. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the extraordinary world of Jimmy Greaves, here's something to ponder. Did he find greater fulfillment in his post-football life than during his playing career?
It's a fascinating question. He achieved greatness on the pitch, but he also faced immense challenges. In his later life, he found peace, purpose, and a profound connection with his family and the public. Maybe it's not about comparing, but recognizing the different dimensions of a remarkable life.
A life well-lived, full of passion, talent, and ultimately, redemption. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Jimmy Greaves. We'll see you next time.